Kelly Dale with offthebeadedpathbeadstore.com. I'm so glad you've joined me because today I'm going to be showing you how to make a beaded project that is going to be on trend for the summer, and that is a beaded or accessorized trucker hat or ball cap. So I'm on TikTok a lot. These caps are everywhere on TikTok right now. And basically what they're doing is they're taking a blank trucker hat up here and adding any kind of patch they want to it. I've seen tons of different lives of people showing putting their patches on, and a patch can be bought at just about any big box store or craft hobby store. And then once they have this the way they want it, then they're making a beaded chain accessory to go here. Now I've seen two different versions and I'm going to share those with you today. Version 1 is where you actually take a needle and thread and you permanently adhere the beads to or chain to your hat. So if you want to do that, you're going to need a size 10 beading needle and some 6-pound beading thread, whatever you want, if you're going to permanently do it. The other way I've seen to do it is to actually take lobster claws and attach to each end. For those of you who do shows, the lobster claw option is going to be your best bet this summer because they can slip on and off just about any cap that you have, because they are going to fit or clasp. Instead of on your wrist, they're going to clasp onto each side of the cap here. So if you do that version, you are going to need 2 lobster claws. Now, it's kind of hard to tell you exactly what size lobster claw because I have seen the gamut of them. I have seen some that are very, very small, so they don't make a huge impact on the hat. And then I've seen some that are a lot bigger that are really easy to open. Like if you have hard time using your hands, they're easier to open and easier to slip in to the hat, but they do see a bigger impact on the neck or on the little trucker hat beaded accessory. So you're going to have to try out a couple and see which size you like the best. You're also going to need a beading wire. Beading wire is a great wire for this, or you can use just about any other brand, but you want to use either a 0.012 up to a 0.018 in diameter, and your 49 strand beading wire is going to work best. Along with that, you're going to need 2 2x2 crimps, and if you want it to look better, you can also use 2 4mm crimp covers that will cover up that crimp, make it look a little better. Other than that, you can use whatever beads you have in your stash. These are great stash busters because it's only going to take this much to go around the hat. So let's play. Let's get started and have a fun time learning how to make these on-trend trucker chains for your hats. So the first thing I'm going to show you how to do is how to add chain permanently to the hat if you wanted to do a chain. This, again, you can do it several ways. You can either put it really up close to the hat like this, or you can leave it a little bit looser so it'll look more like this. It's one of those things, if you're designing and you're putting this permanently on a hat, you can really play with it and do it as you please. So that's what I'm going to do. So I've threaded my needle here with 24 inches of thread, and I've put both ends of the thread through the needle so that on the end over here, all I have left is just a little loop. So I'm going to take the hat itself and I'm going to come in here where you have your little flap here, and I'm going to open this flap up, and I'm going to come in somewhere here close to the edge of the hat. So I'm coming in kind of right here next to where the hat meets, or the foam of the hat meets the mesh of the hat. Now I'm going to pull this through, but now I'm not going to pull this through all the way. I'm going to leave myself a tail thread here. So this is just if I'm adding chain. If I'm going to add beads, I'm going to do it a little bit differently. So my chain here actually has these little tiny links. So I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to pass it through one of these links. Now, if you can't get it through a link, then you can go down to a smaller size needle. But now that I've got it through the link and I know that it's not going to do anything, I'm going to take and I'm going to come through the, let me see here. So I'm coming out of this piece of mesh right here. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to come down through the very next hole in the mesh. So when I pull, you'll see how the chain is there. Okay, it stops it. That little piece in between the mesh stops it from going anywhere. So then at that point, I'm going to turn around here and I'm going to take these two pieces of thread and I'm going to tie them together. And when I tie them together, I'm bringing it all the way down. So what's going to happen is our flap of our cap is going to hide anything that looks bad, or our little knot, it's going to hide it. Let me get my ends here. I took my needle off. And I'm just going to tie this a couple of times, making sure we get a nice knot in here and it's not going to come out. And the great thing about this is if you ever get tired of this being on your hat, then all you have to do is clip the little thread and you're done. So I've put a couple of knots in here. I'm going to take my little thread zapper, or you can use your cutters, and I'm going to trim it. Now, I'm not going to trim it super short. I've got about probably 1/4 of an inch of thread left there. And then all I'm going to do is fold that flap back over, and my chain is adhered to this side. So then I can take, I can put the chain, I want it to lay it out on the hat the way I want it to look. Now, you just don't want to pull it super tight. See how when I pull this in, it pulls this in a little bit here? We don't want to do this. We want to leave it just a little loose so that way it doesn't pull on the hat and actually make it smaller. So I'm going to lay the chain out the way that I like it. And then I'm going to put some more thread on my needle and I'm going to show you how I attach this side. So I'm going to start this the same way. I've got my needle. I have my little ends of thread here. And so that way on the end, all I have is my little loop. Just makes life a little easier. Again, I'm going to open the flap on the inside of the hat. And I'm going to come through one of the loops of the mesh. Now again, I'm not going to pull this all the way through. I can see my extra thread here. And I'm going to lay the cap or the chain the way I want it to lay. And then when I'm happy with where I know I want it, I'm going to go through one of the links here. I'm going to kind of hold it there. So I'm going to go through a link on each piece of chain. So link. And link. Now I'm going to test that by pulling the thread tightly here. And I like it. I think that's exactly how I would want that chain on my hat. So then all I'm going to do is just like I did on the other side, I'm going to take and I'm going to pass through the very next link of mesh in the hat and pull it so that my chain here is the way I want it. Again, I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to tie the ends together. So I've got, take my needle off here, get my ends, find my loop that I had. Here we go. And then I will tie these together just like I did on the other side. Make sure you're not getting caught in anything here on the inside of your hat. I love being able to upcycle something that, you know, was made for a purpose and I'm not necessarily using it for that purpose. So I love being able to reuse something, give it a new life. So again, I'm going to get rid of my excess thread there. So when I fold the cap back, or fold that little inside part back over, you can see that is how that is. Now I can take a pair of cutters and I can cut this as long or as short as I want it. So if you wanted to, you could leave a little excess here just to dangle off the side, just to give it a little bit more you know, another look to it. I'm actually going to take and kind of up close here, I'm going to go ahead and trim those pieces. So I really like doing it this way because you can't tell, you know, you can't really tell how it was added. It looks like it was meant to be on this hat. And so this is one way that you can add the chain to your trucker hat. Now, another way that we can permanently adhere our beads to the bill of our hat is I'm going to start the same way, but I'm going to take 2 pieces of thread and I'm going to put both ends of the thread through my size 10 needle. And I'm just making sure that I have plenty that will go here on the hat. So I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to come through the inner part of the hat here. And I'm going to pull it through and leave myself enough that I can tie. And then I'm going to take the needle and pass through the mesh right next to where I was coming up just a second ago. And I'm going to flip the hat over. And I'm going to tie my 2 ends that I've got pulled through. I'm going to tie the 2 ends in that working thread together. I'm going to tie these into a few knots. Now, once I'm happy, before I trim anything off, I'm going to take the needle, flip the hat over, and I'm going to pass the needle back through the hat again. Move some of this out of the way here. Okay. And make sure you pull this through before you cut the hat or cut the string. Okay, make sure you do that so it'll look good. All right, so now what you're going to do is you're going to start just threading on your beads however you want. So I have some nickel, I have some white, and I have some blue. So I'm just going to start threading on the beads. So let's say 4, 5, 6, and then I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 like that. And I think I'm just going to do a repetition pattern of that. So I'm just going to thread my beads on and we let them drop. And you can see there kind of where they're going to be at. So if you don't like it there, which I don't, I'm going to come in a little closer to the cap inside here so that it'll lay a little bit further down. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to thread my beads on until I get to the other side. Okay, so you can see here how I've put my beads on. These are size 8 seed beads. And you can again see where I actually come back through and I come back here closer to the bottom of the piece. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to come in here. And I'm going to come in closer to the bottom of where that bill is at. And I'm going to thread it through. When you thread it through, be careful not to get it caught on any other pieces of the hat. And make sure when you pull it through that your beads are here along the top. And look at that. Oh my goodness, I love it. So now I'm going to flip this over. And I'm actually going to use the hat itself now to help me put in some little half-hitch knots. And the great thing about this is you can actually use this extra fabric that's here under your bill of your hat. So again, I'm going to make sure I'm happy with where it's at. I'm going to flip the little cap over here, and I'm going to use the little excess fabric that I've tucked into, and I'm going to do some half-hitch knots into that fabric. Again, I want to look back on, make sure this is where I want it, what I'm happy with. And I'm going to put, like I said, a few little half-hitch knots here into this fabric. And then I might suggest coming through, passing through a little bit of that fabric there. And then maybe coming here, right here at the mesh, and maybe use the mesh as a little point to put you a few little half-hitch knots in here as well. All right, and once I'm happy with that, again, I can trim, make sure to leave some extra. See, I didn't trim it all the way. And so when all that folds over, see, that folds back in and covers that up. I can't see that from this side whatsoever. And so now I have a little beaded part here onto my hat. Now again, this is permanent, but the great thing is if you're ever tired of it, just cut off the thread and you're good to go. But now I'm going to show you how to take wire and lobster claws and crimps and make some that you can change out on any hat. Okay, so for your final trucker hat jewelry, we are going to be adding a beaded piece to this hat. So I got these really cute Decagon Crystal AB. They're ultra or super AB. I love them. They came in, we got them in a 6 and an 8, and I thought, man, this will be just the thing to jazz this hat up. And man, look at that. Look how much, I love it. So when we do this part, this is where you're going to need your 2 lobster claws, your 2 crimp covers, and your 2 2x2 crimps. This is also a great stash buster because you're going to use up some of your stash beads. You're also going to need your wire. So I told you we needed a 0.012 to a 0.018 wire. So I'm using a 0.014. And I'm going to use a 21 strand. A 21 to a 49 strand is going to be ideal for this project. So I found I had just a little bit left on this spool. So I decided to go ahead and use up some of this. And you'll notice that when I thread the beads on here, I did not cut the wire. I went ahead and I threaded the beads on so that I would not have to waste a bunch of wire, and I could test to see how far I wanted those beads to go. So for the basic one that we're going to do, I have my beads on here. I'm going to take this end of the wire and I'm going to thread on my crimp tube and my lobster claw. Now, if you have a wire protector and you want to put a wire protector, you can do that as well. But I'm just going to use this for now. And then if you do not have a pair of crimp pliers, you always have the option of taking and flattening out the crimp. But I've never liked that. I just don't like the look of it. So I use my crimp pliers. It has a back hole shaped like a jelly bean and a front hole that's an oval. So I'm going to put this in the back hole first. Make sure it's centered in that back hole. And I'm going to press. And you see that gives me a little indentation. So with that indentation facing outward, I'm going to come into that oval hole in the front. And I'm going to press it closed. And you'll notice when I do that, that's what it looks like. And we can take a good pair of cutters and you can either nip this off or you can slide it through the beads here, and that's what I'm going to do. But before I go any further, I'm going to take my crimp cover, and I'm going to put it in the front hole there, because you can definitely leave it like it is, but I mean, I want it to look a little bit nicer, so I'm just going to put my crimp cover on there and make sure it's nice and close so that it looks like a round ball instead of just a flat little piece. And so see, now I can hide the wire in there and I'm set. So I'm going to go ahead, slide those beads down, and then I'm only going to leave about 2.5 inches, something of that effect. And then I'm going to do the same thing. It's going to be the crimp and the lobster. And then I'm going to bring it back down through the crimp. But now before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and thread through a bead. And then I'm going to hold that wire and just kind of bring it down a little bit. Now, I want to make sure before I do anything that this is kind of loose, that I've not pulled it so tight that any beads stick out funny. And that looks good. But I also want to leave enough room to put my wire or my crimp cover on. So again, I'm going to put it in that back jelly bean hole and go through, press. And then with that little indentation outward, I'm going to press again. Then I'm going to go ahead and use a good pair of cutters, and I'm going to nip that wire off. And then we can put on the wire or the crimp cover. Now again, this is not a have to. You don't have to put this crimp cover on. I just like it. I think it finishes it up really nicely. But it's completely up to you. So now you can see here, we have this. So it's got the lobster claws on, so you can constantly change the things out on your hat, or you can make these longer and shorter and put multiples of them on the hats. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here with our lobster claw, and I want to kind of grab it here in between two of my pieces. I'm going to bring it around. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to grab in between a piece of that mesh there. And then would you look at that? I absolutely love how that hat looks. And again, it's made so we can just take these on and off and change out our beads on our hats. So friends, I hope I've been able to show you today how you can add beads permanently to a hat or chain to a hat, or how you can interchange your bead and chain and charms and whatever you want onto the hats. Again, this is a trending thing. I've seen it everywhere on TikTok. So I thought you guys would want to know about how to do these, so that especially as you're doing shows, spring and summer shows, hopefully it'll help you bring in some extra revenue at your booths. But also, man, just look at that. Look at how much that changes. I absolutely love it. So I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.